is 9:03. I think we should get started already. We have a fun-filled webinar here today. So let me get started by introducing myself. All right. So my name is Christian Hernandez. I am the head of community over here at Akuity, responsible for all things open source, and developer advocacy, technical marketing, things like that. But what we're here today to talk about is Kargo and Kargo GA, some of the things that we've been working on here at Akuity. We've been working very, very hard in Kargo. But before we get started, before we jump right into Kargo and all the exciting things that's coming up that we have to do with Kargo, is that I'm going to kind of give you a little background of Akuity, who we are, what we do, and what we aim to accomplish with our platform. So with that, so the Akuity team was actually founded by the originators of the Argo project. One of them being Jesse, who's joining us here today. But our founders, Hong, Jesse, and Alex, actually met a while back, actually at a small startup called Applatics, and who was then later acquired by Intuit. And while they were at Intuit, they created the Argo project. So Intuit had a strategic direction to move to Kubernetes, all on cloud. And as I'm saying this, hopefully I'm getting the story right there, Jesse. And they were wanting to migrate everything on over to Akuity. And so, sorry, to the migrate everything over to Kubernetes. And while they were there, they ran Argo in production. They created Argo CD, Argo rollouts, all the suite of the Argo tools, and they created and they ran that in production. So they ran it in production, and they kind of took all the lessons learned, right? All the pain, all the things that you go through when you implement a new platform, and then they took that and then they started Akuity, right? So they took those lessons learned and they created a platform. So the Akuity platform is actually, the idea behind the Akuity platform is an enterprise end-to-end GitOps platform. So it's compromised of literally GitOps focused platform on using Argo CD for the delivery aspect of it, and then also monitoring of that delivery of GitOps applications and deployments using Cube Vision. And then also what we ended up doing is that we created a project called Kargo, and that's what we're here to talk about today, right? So Kargo kind of being that missing piece. Don't want to take any of the thunder away from Jesse and Kelsey here, but the literally the idea behind the Akuity platform is to provide a unified GitOps centric platform that really improves the quality of life, right? So we have Kubernetes, we have the operating framework that is GitOps, and we took that idea and said, let's create a centralized platform for it. Let's create an easier way to implement GitOps and that functioning the functioning workload onto using a GitOps centric way of deploying things. So we have Argo CD, which has been around for a very, very long time, bread and butter, kind of the table stakes way of doing GitOps. We released Cube Vision not too long ago, a few months ago, for GitOps centric monitoring for your entire GitOps deployments. And then we have Kargo now that enables continuous promotion. And really that missing piece between CI and GitOps, and GitOps centric CD. So I think from here, I think I'm going to pass it on over to Jesse and Kelsey, so that way they can kind of go over the history of Kargo, a little bit about why we're doing Kargo, and a little bit kind of use case driven kind of presentation. So Jesse and Kelsey, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here, and I'll let you take it away.
All right.
Hey people, it's been a minute. So look, Jesse, maybe pull up your slides and maybe we'll get people kind of in the right mindset.
Yeah.
A lot of people are here because they saw the Cargo 1.0 announcement. People look at Cargo and they're like, oh, it rhymes with Argo. Yes, they are very related, almost in spelling and how they complement each other. A lot of people in the chat are talking about live demos. There are definitely going to be live demos today. Jesse's going to be driving those live demos. And what I'm going to do is play a lot of the curiosity role. I used to be an advisor for the Argo and Akuity team. And part of that work, we built the first versions of Argo or Cargo, and it was very opinionated. There's a lot has changed between then and 1.0. So that's what we're going to dive in today. So Jesse, take it from here. Maybe start us off, and we're going to explore cargo together. So if you got questions, drop them in the chat. But there'll be an extensive Q&A session after this. But I'll be paying attention to the chat. So if there's anything that comes up, I'll try to make it get that question answered in real time. Over to you, Jesse.
Thanks, Kelsey. All right. So today we're announcing two things. The first being that Cargo is officially reached 1.0 status. And the second, Cargo is available as a managed offering in Akuity's cloud platform. So before we get into it, I'll do a quick overview for those probably new to Cargo. What it is, how it works. Um, all right, so Cargo is what we call a multi-stage GitOps continuous promotion tool. And you can think of it as a layer above Argo CD and other tools that coordinate the promotion of your build artifacts, such as typically it's your container image from environment to environment. But it does this in a GitOps focused way. It offers a number of benefits. One, you get a very flexible promotion pipeline. In Cargo, you model your environment into stages, and each stage is individually defined, giving you a lot of flexibility on how promotion should happen for that stage. Should it create a PR? Should it run a different set of tests? We have two. We have a rich user interface and dashboard that lets users understand the state of their application across all their environments. In other words, at a glance, you can tell how far back production might be from the latest build. Um, Third, we try to abstract the complexities and nuances of GitOps from the end user, um, and basically try to hide it away. To From our perspective, GitOps is basically an implementation detail that application service owners don't need to know or care about. Um, Cargo provides you safer, more reliable deployments by ensuring promotions happen in a proper sequence. And Cargo also provides testing and verification between your stages. Um,
So Jesse, I want to add a thing here because I think when GitOps first came out, this idea of like this new world of declarative infrastructure where you got your YAML files or whatever you're using, you're pushing it to some GitHub repository, and then some trigger happens, right? That could kick off a chain reaction using Argo inside of your clusters. And for a lot of people, that was just enough workflow. But if you've ever done this across like multiple environments, or you've done this like in a team setting, it's not clear what's going to trigger what, or how do you stage changes, meaning you may be checking in stuff all the time based on your branching strategy. Any new change could just trigger things, and maybe that's not what you want to happen. So I think most people, even though we are in this fully declarative world that GitOps supports, the truth is promotion is a very imperative things where decisions need to be made at different times that don't always line up with the triggers. So I think you're adding just the realization that a lot of this work is imperative, and that's where workflows come back into the fold. But you don't have to abandon GitOps underneath because there's a lot of value that brought to the table.
Yeah, exactly. I like to explain to people that GitOps actually just made things harder because now you're interjecting an interaction to a Git repository as part of your promotion. You have some eventual consistency things going on where, okay, I made that change. When is it safe to actually test that thing after it rolls out in production. So a lot of people have resorted to, their CI scripting and stuff, and everyone's doing it differently. It's writing their own bespoke scripts.
Awesome. Let's keep rolling.
Yeah. So next question is like, where does Kargo fit in the picture? So we've been saying for some time now that we think that CI/CD is too often like lumped together, almost as if they're this one thing, CI/CD. So our perspective is that this might have been more or less true in the past, but with these days, with containers, microservices, multi-cloud, dealing with so many environments, the CD part has become a lot more complex, and we feel it's deserving of its own tool and user experience. So Kargo doesn't replace your CI or existing CD tools, but it introduces a better orchestration layer and user experience around promotion. So it leaves CI to do what it does best, which is to build and produce an artifact. But once that artifact is pushed, Kargo takes it from there. So Kargo will continuously monitor your artifact repository for new artifacts. It'll promote that change into your GitOps repository. It'll work and then sync it with Argo CD. And then it'll also even query your metric provider to make sure that deploy was successful. And so just to see how it works, let's just kind of illustrate what happens. So you have your CI system and maybe a DevOps engineer. And then you also have your artifact repository, such as a container repository or a GitOps repository holding your config. So your CI system might push a new container to the image repo, or your engineer might push a configuration change, like adding an environment variable. Both of these are things you might want to promote and test between environments. So Kargo continuously monitors these repositories for new artifacts. And shortly after you push that image or make that git commit, Kargo detects that and then performs a promotion. And it performs that promotion by making the git commit to the GitOps repo for that environment. And then if you happen to be using Argo CD, Kargo will then sync that change to, we'll call Argo CD sync, and then wait for that application to become healthy. And then once that update is rolled out, the stage enters a verification phase. This is where Kargo will run any tests that you define. This might be a query against your metric provider. It could be a Kubernetes job that runs like your integration test. And then finally, if your test succeeds, then you can repeat steps 3 and 4 to downstream stages. All right, so that's kind of like the kind of high level illustration about how it works. I think it warrants to just actually show it in action.
You got one question here, which I think is maybe it's not clear for some people. So I think a lot of people understand we've already kind of decided as an industry, CI, the thing that produces builds and maybe even configs, is very different than how you roll them out. And so one of the questions was, a lot of times when you're just doing like GitOps in its purest form, there's no monitoring of a promotion to make sure things are actually working before you continue rolling things out. How's that fit in the Kargo world? Is there a way to say, hey, maybe I'm rolling out across multiple clusters or nodes? Is there a way to have that feedback loop of saying maybe the metrics aren't what I want to see, or I'm seeing errors, to pause that migration or maybe even potentially roll back?
Yeah, and that's precisely what Kargo is trying to surface in its user interface. So we have a dedicated section on the verification process that happens as part of a promotion, or I should say after the promotion, and then you'll see in the demo that whether that passes or succeeds will block further promotions to downstream stages.
And I would also assume one big bonus here was the idea of doing this across multiple clusters and environments becomes much easier, because I think if you think about Argo in its native form, you install that in your cluster and you have this control plane in your cluster. And I think someone posted in chat, a lot of people have these getopt.sh scripts that are trying to orchestrate at this layer that now Cargo lives.
Yeah, yeah, and like I mentioned before, everyone does it their own way. So hopefully, this solves this, this common pain point that people consistently have, at least with
All right, let's
all
jump
the
to it.
users that we talk with. All right, so let's let's start. Let's start here. I'll be using Akuity's cloud platform for this demo. So if you're not familiar with Akuity platform, this is our SaaS service where you can get a managed offering of both Argo CD and Cargo. And so we provide a portal for provisioning and configuring your Cargo instances. For example, this is the instance that I'll be using in my demo today. Um, Inside here, I can configure Cargo, maybe upgrade it, maybe configure it with single sign-on. I can input some credentials that might be necessary for like Datadog, New Relic. And one of the benefits we have in our platform is we also, because we host it, we can also store some long-term persistence of Cargo and Argo CD metrics. So we can present things like DORA metrics or long-term audit records of what people, user activity and successful promotions. But actually, let's just go ahead and switch to the Cargo instance where I'll be doing the actual demo.
So I noticed you just clicked that button there. One of the questions I think related to this in chat is, does Argo have RBAC? Can people log in? Can you create roles and profiles to limit what people can do or see in the platform?
Yeah, of course. And in fact, that's actually one of the things we're most proud of and how we did RBAC is because we fully leveraged Kubernetes RBAC. In other words, Kubernetes supports things like introducing your own verbs. So the normal verbs you have get, create, update, delete. But with Cargo, we introduced a promote verb. And so now this is this new verb that you can give to your users, but maybe not give them, say, like the ability to modify their pipeline and update stages, add, remove stages. So there's a lot of cool techniques that we used with the Kubernetes RBAC that we've learned a lot from Argo CD, which had its own kind of custom RBAC, which felt necessary at the time, but we've learned a lot since then. In this go around, we've relied on pure Kubernetes RBAC.
That's
The other
dope.
thing,
Well,
yeah.
while we're still on permissions really quick, what if someone isn't using like the Akuity platform that has a lot of this stuff built in and easy to manage? Do you support like enterprises SSO and OIDC?
Yeah. These are actually a lot of these things I kind of showed out here, like an admin account OIDC config. These are actually just the same configuration you can do in the Helm chart, but we just throw a user interface on top of it.
Awesome. So if you all are seeing that, you can kind of see the pattern here. Akuity is basically saying everything's in the actual software. You can configure it. You can do the things you normally do, put configs where they belong. If you're using Helm charts to install this stuff, keep doing that. But also, if you're in Akuity, they're starting to bring UI to this stuff, right? So a lot of people ask, like, hey, how do you make this easier? What value is Akuity adding at all? It's more like, hey, instead of you, kubectl apply or touching Helm charts, you can basically come here and start to manage a fleet of these things. So I think a lot of times you see these SaaS products start to manage in number of these things at scale.
Yep. All right. So going back to the Cargo, I have two projects. We'll start with a simple example just to get people a feel for Cargo. So what you're looking at is the main view of Cargo, it's pipeline view. So this is the view that provides an overview of all your environments and which version of your software is deployed in each environment. And here we see a very basic 3-stage deploy pipeline, very typical. And on far left, we have our first dev stage. And you can see that dev is subscribed to an image repository. And this is just my GitHub container registry where I just push kind of dummy image tags. And so so Kargo will continuously monitor this container registry for new images. Once a new image is pushed, it'll show up in our as artifacts, which we call freight in this timeline. So the more recent stuff will kind of get pushed on the left here. And once they appear in this timeline, then they become promotable into your environments. All right, so let's actually promote something. So I just have some images teed up, ready to promote into dev. So to promote, you just click into this target icon into the stage. And then from here, you can see I'm able to select one of the freight or images that I want to promote. So let's go ahead and just pick 80. All right, so you can see how promotions are happening in this tab. We can see that it was really quick. It just did this process of cloning the repository, setting an image, committing, and pushing it. So now, if we visit the GitOps repo, oh, this is the simple example. We'll see that it just made a new commit right here. And so Kargo committed and pushed this customized edit set image change into my dev environment, or dev overlay, I should say. So there's the question, like, how did I define my stages? So I'm happy to kind of go into what is a stage, and how the YAML, what it takes to actually define it. So stages are Kubernetes CRD resources. And basically you have a list of steps that define, like, what does it mean to promote into this stage. In the case of this example, I want to clone this repo, set an image, commit, and push it. So anytime we push freight into this thing, it's going to go through these steps. The other half of a stage is, like, where am I getting stuff from, my artifacts? Since this is the dev stage, it's getting it directly from the warehouse, or our image repository. And then in the case of this, the staging stage, this one, same deal. It has a similar set of promotion steps, but instead of subscribing directly to the container repository, it's actually subscribing to the dev stage. And so this is how you can kind of piecemeal. I like to describe it as a bottoms-up definition of your pipeline, because if you think about, say, your CI system, like a Jenkins file, it's a very top-down definition. You define like a huge 1,000-line Jenkins file, and maybe you want to attach something at the very end. Well, you got to kind of go through your whole pipeline just to do that, develop that new, last step of your Jenkins pipeline. With Kargo, to tack on a stage at the end, I just add one more of these things, reference my dependent, or the what I'm subscribed to, and then I don't even have to touch any other stages or environments.
So one question came up, which is, like, look, for a simple app where you just got one app and you just release that whole app holistically between environments. What about those scenarios where it's like, look, normally we release like 6 apps, but this time I need to release just 3 of them, right? I have 3 things that now depend on each other that are seeing updates. What does it look like to promote that sub collection between these environments?
So are we talking like about a multiple like microservices
Yeah, let's just say I'm working on the front end and now I got changes to auth and maybe events, right? And so this time I just need to promote those three
Yeah.
things.
So actually, yeah, we've thought about that problem a lot, and there's kind of two thoughts, and it depends on like what your use case is. But one important thing to note is that this pipeline, it doesn't have to just be one. So um, we're imagining a multi microservices team. Like, so I have team A is responsible for microservice A, team B is responsible for microservice B, and those two teams deploy at their own clip. Like one deploys every day, the other deploys once a week. Um, so one way would be to have independent pipelines, and they would show up here as like two pipelines, and you can just kind of see, you can select kind of from which one you care about in the user interface. So that's one approach. Another that approach that Kargo supports is them merging into the same. So I might have a second image repository, and dev actually this warehouse could actually subscribe to two image repositories. What happens then is that Kargo will offer you the opportunity to permutate the two sources of artifacts. And I can show you. I guess this will be a kind of a jump to the more advanced example. But this is kind of what I'm talking about. So you can see where this warehouse is actually subscribed to a container registry as well as a GitOps repo of changes. Just pretend, for example, this is a second image repository. So what you can do is actually pick two your combination of things. So by default, it's going to skim from the top of each thing it's monitoring, and it'll just kind of take from the top. But if I want like, okay, I want version 86 of guestbook, and I also want this commit of my config repo, I can go ahead and create that, and I get this new combination of those two artifacts that is promotable as a single unit. So that's the other kind of approach that we offer for people to maybe have two kind of microservices, and they want to maybe promote them completely separately, or they want to kind of permutate it and promote them as a unit.
What I'm seeing right now is there is a lot of questions solely around promotions. It seems like if I were to just try to gaze the room in real time, I think people kind of understand a lot around, you know, each of these steps being a series of steps, right? Which is in alignment with some of the imperative nature of doing things, right? Do this, then this equals a transition between these environments. But I think a lot of people are asking around promotion. So what I'm going to do, maybe for the next 3 or 4 minutes, I'm going to cherry pick some of these questions around that promotion theme and give you a chance to answer them by going in between the UI to just show people how it's implemented. So one, I'll give you, I think it's going to be a little easier one. Does Cargo support deployment windows and deployment schedules? Also, is it possible to stop promotions from a stage to another without stopping the whole pipeline?
Great questions. Let's start with the last one first because I think it's quicker and easier. So if the answer is we can support fully automated end-to-end if you choose to. So it's possible for this whole thing to go take a piece of freight and push it down through all your environments, assuming all the testing is passing in between each stage. For demo purposes, it's better for me to just manually promote to kind of slow things down. But I could turn on auto promotion on all of the stages. The first question, it was around
Like a schedule. I know when I used to work in
yeah.
enterprise, people have like do this at midnight type of
Yeah.
scenarios.
So there's two parts that I think might work. So today, Argo CD itself has something called a deploy window. I forget if Kargo honors that. I believe we have a feature that Argo CD will honor the scheduling window of Argo CD itself. But that being said, we actually want to bring that same kind of scheduling into Kargo. So if you have a code freeze on prod, you want to make sure, like, you want to trust that everyone got the memo. You just want to freeze prod and make sure no one can click that promote button there. That feature, I know there's an issue for that in Kargo, but if not, and you happen to be using Argo CD, because keep in mind, Kargo isn't just for Argo CD. But if you are using Argo CD, we do have, I believe we honor the sync window feature of Argo CD, which allows you to stop syncs.
So Jesse, I'm going to pull on that thread because there are some questions around, is this just for Kubernetes manifests or container images? And I think we talked earlier about Kargo 1.0 also kind of breaking free of just only targeting downstream to maybe an Argo CD thing that's doing some of the things in the cluster. Also, I think you all are trying to work on generalizing the type of thing that can be deployed. And so does that include things like Helm charts?
Oh yeah, so Helm charts is already supported today. I don't have an example of, unfortunately, right now. But the 3 artifact repositories that we currently support are Docker repository, container image repository, Helm chart repository, and Git repository. So people are often like, what does it mean to monitor a Git repository? That's actually configuration. It's actually one of the unique things I would say about Kargo is that we can promote like a environment variable the same way you would promote like an image. But yeah, the Helm charts are supported. And then tugging on that a bit, or it was kind of heading towards the end of my presentation, but yes, Kargo is, we're thinking bigger. We want to look outside of Kubernetes in what we support for promotion. And what that will mean is that we will have to support monitoring of other types of artifact repositories. So imagine your artifact is a binary that you attach to a GitHub release. So we should be able to monitor GitHub releases, and anytime we see a new GitHub release and it has a little attachment to that, then let's take that artifact and SSH it to, I don't know, a VM. So that's kind of like where the future is, but could be getting ahead of ourselves.
I think one thing that I know we wanted to talk about was verification, and it may even answer a lot of the questions here. So a lot of this is more like, hey, what type of control do I have between these environments, right? And a lot of people want to put up gates. Some people want manual approvals. We've saw those in previous systems. But to me, the first thing that comes to mind is like verification. Do this list of steps. If it turns green, then proceed.
Yeah, I'm happy to show verification, and I do. You'll need to remind me about to show the manual approvals, because that's also a cool feature that people need to know exists in Kargo. Okay, so I'm right where I want to be. This is our kind of more advanced Kargo example, and it's advanced because you can see it splits off here, like we're doing an A and a B test, and then this is kind of showing like the capabilities, like, hey, I don't know which version I want to promote to prod. I'm going to choose the better of A or B. This is something like a traditional CI pipeline doesn't offer you like choice in the middle of or at least it's pretty hard to achieve that.
Just, I'm going to get a little clarity here. So look, I'm a developer. I've been doing stuff in staging, doing my inner loop or dev. Now we're into staging, but maybe we're allowing our customers to have an A/B environment, right? Some customers are getting A, some are doing B, or my QA team could be evaluating 2 things that we're considering going to production based on what's packaged in there.
Yeah.
is this kind of the thing you're saying, hey, have those two target environments, and then you'll decide whether A goes to production or B goes to production. Is that the way you're thinking about it?
That's exactly, yeah, how to think about this. Yeah. So, these happen to be the two stages in this pipeline where I've attached some testing to. What is my test first of all? So Cargo reuses. If you're familiar with Argo rollouts, Argo rollouts has this analysis component, and it's actually quite feature rich. Let me just bring up this one slide. Um, so we reused Argo rollouts. The reason we wanted to reuse it is because we immediately got integration with all of these metric providers out of the gates, because we spent years developing Argo rollouts to be able to query metric providers, interpret their results, create a robust kind of analysis engine. And so we took that controller and packaged it with Cargo. With Cargo, we are basically using the exact same analysis templates that you see in Argo rollouts, but for the purposes of stage-to-stage verification. So whereas in Argo rollouts, you were doing the same analysis, but you were doing it during a single workload, and you were testing like, oh, when I bump up traffic from 5 to 10%, is our metric still good? So the same idea, but instead of like doing it at the granular level, we go up a notch. We go, okay, let's promote something fully to an environment and then run this analysis. And so that's what this is about.
And there's a quick question of where does this analysis run? Is this running on the cargo cluster or is it running in the destination cluster?
Yeah. So with the open source Cargo, everything installs in the control plane. And so the analysis will run in the same place where Cargo is installed. With the Akuity platform, one of the benefits we did was we created actually a agent installation method. So we can create n number of agents. Maybe you need it to run in a bunch of like all your clusters, because your testing requires you to access in cluster Prometheus or in cluster. Maybe you want to hit the service itself directly through some other port or some other that's not exposed like externally. So the answer is it kind of depends. So you're on our platform, you can actually create many agents and then install it everywhere, and then you can run the tests in cluster. Open source, it's everything just kind of is installed in the control plane. Your analysis runs where Cargo is installed. All right. And then so this analysis, it's just kind of this stupid web URL that hits the REST API, and then hits the interprets the result. I have two. One of this will fail, and the other one will intentionally fail, and the other one will pass. So this is the same thing. It's just hitting the same REST API, but just interpreting the result slightly differently. Okay, so I have the two stages. These they are set up to the A one is set up to pass, and the B one is set up to fail. So let's say I want to promote. Let's promote A. And then for B, oh, I don't have a separate one ready to promote. Let me just re-promote the one that it's in. Okay. So let's look at A's. Let's look at A's testing. So it's actually running this verification. So I can look at what it's actually doing. So it's actually running that cat fact REST API, and then we see that it took 4 measurements. All of them returned true, and so this was a successful test. It passed our test. Meanwhile, B, if we look at this verification, this is the one I just submitted, and we can see that when I look at here, it took 4 measurements, and all of them failed to meet the criteria. So we can see, if you really want to dig deep, you can see like the actual measurements and what happened. All right, so I have two different artifacts promoted into my A and my B. So how it works is, next, if I were to choose what goes to prod, I can select like a prod environment, or actually maybe I want to select all my prod environments, all 3 of these. And you'll see something interesting up here. You'll see that I am allowed to promote the yellow environment, the A, because it passed that, but I can't click on the green one, because it never passed. The green one never passed my tests. So these are the type of guardrails that Kargo gives you. Is like if your end user is put in with some guardrails to make sure that they're properly promoting stuff that is passing your process and tests.
And I want to shout out Peter here because I think he's doing a good job in the chat summarizing things. Like, I see Kargo as an in-between CI and Argo CD. GitHub actions, builds, and pushes artifacts. Argo CD manages a declarative app. Kargo does the in-between, like promotions, testing, and writing commits. So when we say hiding GitOps, what we're thinking about here is basically like, look, you got this end-to-end flow. You have your artifacts. Here you're being super clear about what's an artifact. And then you're kind of subscribing some of those auto triggers, right? It could be git commit. It could be a new container gets pushed. And we know what happens, right? If you're doing this manually or through some script, you would get that container image version number, substitute it in the config, and then apply it to that next particular environment, which could be 1 or more clusters, as you can see here. But underneath the hood, instead of you doing that kind of workflow manually, Kargo is literally still honoring the GitHub flow or the GitOps flow, right? It's still going to make those commits. It's still going to push them to the repository. You're still going to have that audit log. But if that is not your thing and you just want to use a CD system, you can do all your work through this UI. When you're clicking those promote buttons, all the tests are running, all the policies are running. A lot of the questions you all have been asking about, how can I put gates? How can I automate? You're going to have all of that stuff, but when people start using that stuff, you still want to track the changes in your Git repositories and audit logs, even though they feel like they're just doing everything visually. So you get this visual workflow on top of GitOps, so everybody's doing the right thing. I know we're getting closer towards the end of the presentation. Maybe you go to that slide that talks about the things that have improved since 1.0 or since it was first released, to make sure we don't miss any of the highlights.
Yeah. So as we were making our way to 1.0, we learned a lot from our community. We learned a lot from our users and customers. We talked a lot. And the biggest lesson we learned, and the changes we made in Kargo and why we feel we're comfortable calling it 1.0 now, is so the biggest lesson we learned was that everyone does things differently. All organizations have their kind of unique requirements. And so when we started this a year back, we were pretty opinionated about the spec, and we assumed things were done. Everyone does things like a specific way, but we were quickly proved wrong. Like, just as an example, one customer we were working with, their process of going to prod was to take an image and then rebuild and literally rebuild it and push it to another container repository. And so that was eye-opening for us. Like, oh, okay, Kargo isn't set up to kind of go to prod when your images are in a completely separate repository. And so we had to adapt and make things a lot more flexible. so the biggest outcome of this was promotion steps. So um, you can promotion steps are a set of a user defined list of steps to follow in the promotion. You got a glimpse of that when I showed you the YAML. We like to think of them like what GitHub actions are to CI. They basically are simple focus steps that do a small task. And it removed the magic that was happening earlier in early Kargo specs, and replace it with kind of like these building blocks. But I think most importantly, like what this is going to enable for Kargo is the extensibility of Kargo that I touched on before. Because now that we switch to promotion steps, these building blocks can easily be added for other type of things. So supporting non-Kubernetes deployments, other artifact repositories and configuration languages, or other things and hooks that you just want to happen as part of your promotion.
I think this is probably one of the most important improvements was just realizing that a deploy target could be a VM, it could be SSH, it could be Heroku. And a lot of people are probably going to go through similar steps no matter what, but just the ability to just put a bash script or something at that step to make it work. And I think Matt McLean sums this up correctly. It's like his intent is to make cargo out of the hands of devs and move into the hands of product. It's not that developers shouldn't be doing this stuff. It's that it's not just devs that can do this stuff. So when you kind of look at the ability to put all the nuances of what a deployment looks like, maybe you have an environment that you just can't be smooth, like the happy path of just promote because it's ready. You now have the ability to really leverage all of those things and capture it somewhere. It reminds me of like when Kubernetes first came out. You have to basically put an API contract to everything. And I think we're doing this part now for the CD side, which is I think is pretty dope. So that's the way to think about it. There's one question here that I want to pull up, Jesse, while we're still in this spot. Um, when will promotion extensibility be available? And my guess is people are asking probably about commit hooks and doing other things.
This we've been talking about this for a while. It's taking us. I think we had to do that pivot and get us set up with kind of the steps first. And so we spent a lot of last few months just making that pivot to set us up for the next phase of Kargo. I would say I think and before we get into that, there's some I call it ergonomics and quality of life stuff that we also want to do actually starting next release, like releasing a lot of boilerplate and there's some quality of life features that we've been putting off for a while. But I think we can expect this work to start being available early 2025.
Awesome, man. I think people like Robert are excited. You know, he has this comment here. Infrastructure as code tools like Terraform also require promotion strategies, not just apps. And I think people are really highlighting the general problem with anything that has multiple environments. There is a bit of orchestration that happens in between the declarative steps. And I think a lot of us have just hand waved it away, wrapped it in bash scripts. And the truth is, you probably want the same advanced UI, tooling, event logging, and verification between the steps as those other projects that we have. So I think you're exactly right. Terraform counts.
Yeah. All right. So if you want to get involved, you can visit our website. We just changed everything about Kargo, including the logo and docs. There's our Git repo, and then join our Discord, the security.community. We're also there answering Argo CD questions too. So not just Kargo, but you can get some Argo CD help. All right. Over back to you, Christian.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Kelsey. A lot of great interaction in the chat. Again, shout out to all of you who are, especially Peter. Peter's been has been a warrior out there on the chat. So it's really cool to see community members, right, being passionate about this. So, this next section here, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna invite some of Acuity's customers that are using Kargo, also a community member as well who is using Kargo. So we're gonna have a little panel here, a panel session, and then we're gonna move on to like the Q&A section. So so Ed, Brad, Jose, if you can turn on your cameras and see, so we can get this panel here started. Let's see here.
Thing I can't
Is
turn
it? Yeah, let me see if I can make you there we go. I see you here. So that's Ed. Brad, I will turn your camera on as well. Awesome. Jose.
I'm here.
There we go. Okay, cool. You should be able to turn on your cameras now. See all you. There you go. Cool, cool, awesome. So so thank you everyone. Thank you for joining. I think I'm going to start with you, Jose. Give kind of like a little brief introduction. Tell me your name, we know where you're from, what your title is, and actually, since we're showing Kargo's kind of color-coded UI, let me know your favorite color, because so that way we kind of get a peek on how you would color code your Kargo instance there.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jose Maldonado. I am a member of the engineering leadership at ThousandEyes, Cisco. Lately, I only see and dream in purple, since my daughter's favorite color. So, but to us, our colors for ThousandEyes is orange.
Nice, nice, awesome, awesome. All right, cool. Ed, if you can come on to tell everyone your name, kind of introduction, where you're from, your title, and your favorite color. What would production be actually for you? That production color.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name's Ed Boykin. I work for CoreCard, which is a small fintech company based out of Atlanta. I'm based out of Seattle, though. And I am the manager of DevOps for what we call our innovation team. So I'm responsible for DevOps and all the cloud architecture that our applications run on. My favorite color is blue, but we have production in red because that is kind of the stop. Make sure you're doing what you want to do.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. All right, cool. So Brad, all right, Brad, again, same thing, name, where you're from, your title, and your favorite color. And actually, I kind of like Ed's thing. What color would production be for you? So
Yeah, hi, I'm Brad Wano. I'm from Bloom Credit. So we are a financial startup. I'm in Chicago right now, but our employees are all over the country remotely. And for my favorite color, oh, did I say I'm a platform engineer? Yes, I think I did. And then my favorite color would probably be, I think for production, definitely red. I got to go with red.
Cool, cool, cool. All right, so so thank you all for joining. You guys, we've for those who you're watching, we not only develop a Kargo in-house, right? We also dog fooded as well, but we also had design partners. So these our design partners in the community has been a huge part about making Kargo what it is today, and very, very exciting to be able to engineer some of this with community feedback and customer feedback. So it's awesome to have these panelists on here. So so I think I'm going to start off with, in general. So I mentioned before in the beginning of the webinar that kind of GitOps has become the operational framework for Kubernetes, right? And it's really improved the experience of many people adopting Kubernetes. But there were still a lot of issues with its role inside of CID and environment promotion. So what I'm wondering is, can you, I'm going to ask you, can you tell me some of the challenges you had with GitOps and promotions? I think I'm going to go with Ed first. So Ed, can you tell me some of the challenges you face with GitOps and and promoting things into these environments?
Yeah. If you don't mind, let me take a minute and talk about the dark ages before I started implementing GitOps. So when I first started at CoreCard, there was no process for deployment. there were about 14 microservices, and the project plan had about 12 more coming online for the next 6 months for the foreseeable future. So it was getting unmanageable. Everything was deployed with a single Helm chart. So everything got built at one time. I'd make one change, 14 services got built, 14 services got deployed. It was just impossible to manage and be able to tell anybody, what was deployed where at any given time. And that was across 5 clusters. So I decided to go to GitOps just so I had a place I could look, a source of truth. That's one of the big tenets for GitOps. We primarily use GitHub, so workflows for all of our builds and deployments. And we got all that redone, rebuilt all our Helm charts into individual charts so we could start deploying things independently. But the deployment part of those workflows in GitHub just became convoluted and messy. And we ended up, didn't make the developers really happy because it was just it was complex to be able to do anything. We had no concept of being able to promote from one environment to the other. Deploy to dev, build it first. Deploy to QA, build it again. Deploy to, so on and so forth. And that was the state about April when I went to KubeCon and I saw Christian's presentation on Kargo. And it immediately kind of rang because we'd already started to look for alternate tools. But that wasn't your question. The biggest challenge though was that convoluted deployment workflow that we had in GitHub. It was impossible to maintain, and it just didn't work, and we couldn't come up with anything really any better. And so that's where we ended up with looking at Kargo.
Awesome, cool. So I actually wanted to move over to Brad a little bit. So Brad, can you same question, right? Can you kind of explain some of the challenges you've had with, like, specifically with GitOps and trying to do some of these environment promotions?
Yeah, so right now, I think we've had a lot of instances where there's a problem, or our engineers are trying to figure something out in terms of pushing up a new version or something, and there's been a lot of confusion. I mean, just last week, and some of the ones we haven't added Kargo to yet, we had 3 different engineers, and they're all looking at entirely different sources of information. So we had YAML deployment files, people were looking in Argo CD or Akuity, the dashboards, people looking at ECR, trying to figure out like what version was causing which problems and all this stuff. So just things like that alone, and having Kargo to have this single source of information, I think that's going to solve so many problems, and it's already making things so much easier just to have one window to see all 3 environments, and being able to promote, roll back, see the deployment files and everything just right there in that one window. I think that's going to solve a lot of problems and just a lot of confusion for our engineers, and being able to make everything. I mean, it really makes GitOps a lot more GitOps when you make the promotion workflows that much easier. So
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so it's kind of similar to us here at Akuity, right? We, like I said before, we do a lot of dog fooding, right? So our production system is also using Kargo, and we face similar issues, right? So this is like actually the reason why we built Kargo, and it really has its history added into it, right? So it has its history added into it. It's like there must be a better way, sort of situation, right? So, actually, I want to kind of point this question over to Jose here, and kind of really ask, like, what are like the reasons why you looked at Kargo to try to mitigate some of these? So like, what specific issues that made you look at Kargo and to try to, like, mitigate some of these challenges?
Yeah, I'll say some of the things that I am hearing resonate to us with us. But at ThousandEyes, one of the opportunities that we faced was also how to rapidly apply the necessary quality guardrails while continuing to provide a great developer experience, leaving our development teams in control of their test implementations. Kargo enables our ability to assert the release readiness criteria uniformly across all teams, with the flexibility to evolve at a scale by extending these criteria without disrupting our engineering teams. Another reason is metrics. We are a company that cares about metrics, And the Akuity platform provides us with the potential of a seamless approach to continuing our journey with DORA metrics and the potential to expand and aggregate at the right level of granularity to make these metrics actionable. This creates for us inference opportunities by incorporating these learnings back to our CI. And this is in addition to what I heard before.
Yeah, no, and Brad, you kind of explained a little bit what are the reasons why you chose Kargo. Can you expand on that a little bit? Was there a specific pain point that made you decide to take a look at Kargo?
Yeah, I think the main thing was just having this, the centralized view, the single pane of glass that we can see all of our environments in that one window and be able to see the history of every version on every environment and be able to go from one environment to the next, and just having that just see the application's journey from the different stages and versions and that single pane of glass. I think that was just the main enticement, and I think it's definitely a really powerful one to be able to have your entire application's cycle through all the versions right there, because nothing that so far that we've seen has something like that, and it's done in a really powerful way with the YAML that you can just customize and change things and make things like insanely complex pretty simple. And I think that really helps our engineers to be able to roll back, fix issues, and promote things whenever they see fit without having the platform team need to interfere and need to intervene with these things. So I think that's giving the power to the developers and allowing them to understand the version lifecycle. I think that's really what the biggest thing is.
Yeah, and I think you touched on a very interesting point there, whereas, you have Argo CD or whatever your GitOps tool is, that you kind of see the end state, and then you have kind of your CI system, which is really just kind of like builds and tests and things like that, and like you really have no context, right, between the two. And I think Kargo really gives that context, right, that much needed context between promotions. And I talk about GitOps, and I think Jesse mentioned before in his presentation that Kargo doesn't really only aims to be a GitOps tool, but also like an infrastructure as code, like promotion tools, which is great, because it's it's completely flexible. It's the idea is just kind of go beyond GitOps. And so my next question here is can you explain, and I think I'm gonna point this to Ed here. So can you explain how Kargo fits in your plans, and when it's used in your organization? What's really funny is that before you answer that, is that Ed, you're actually not an Argo CD user, so I kind of maybe want to have you expand on like how you're using Kargo and how it fits in your organization when you're actually not really using Argo CD.
Sure. I will preface that we're considering it now. So we're looking at it again. We're taking a second look. Yeah, so we've been waiting for the GA release before we turn Kargo on for any of our production deployments. But now that it is, we've got, I guess, what is it, 103 now in testing, and we're probably going to turn that on coming up next week or so, just to do it. But yeah, it's taken the place of all of our deployments. It's not the source of truth. It's still our repo, but it's a view into the source of truth, which for our business analysts and our project managers and program managers who aren't engineers and don't really want to go digging around in a GitHub repository, it gives them kind of their source for reporting and management of our whole lifecycle process. Besides the technical side of it, which is we're managing all of our releases and promotions from dev all the way through our UAT environments right now. So yeah, it's really just it's completely eliminated, with the exception of production, that convoluted mess in GitHub for our deployments. And yeah, I mentioned we're looking at Argo again, just for it does integrate a little bit better with Argo than the tools we're currently using. So we may switch, at least for our application deployments, we may leave build processes in place for the supporting services and things like that, but we don't know yet. But yeah.
That's really cool that like Cargo kind of fits in a situation where you can kind of use multiple deployment tools. It's not really that opinionated on what you use, so that's really cool, right? I like, this is why I like talking to community members and seeing what they're doing. So Jose, actually, so similar question, right? So how is this fitting into the plans for having Cargo be used in the organization?
Yeah, to share some context, we have thousands of service applications managed by Argo with hundreds of syncs per week. And it is critical to replicate and anticipate behaviors before reaching out to production environments. I see having the ability to declaratively and programmatically assess the release readiness before promoting to an elevated environment as a must. And Cargo empowers us to have both global policies and granular controls to roll out changes consistently across these environments in a measurable way, being taken care of by the platform instead of our development teams focusing on this. The other one for us was the support and the collaboration. That was critical for us. ThousandEyes Cisco has been working with the Akuity team for a long time period now. And one critical area of success for us was the rapid operationalization of the value proposition. We are naturally looking forward to continuing with this partnership, but certainly the rapid operationalization to integrate with our existing systems and the support that we received from Akuity was critical in the decision making as part of our business case.
Awesome. Yeah. So actually, kind of last question, and then I think I want to open it up to a little some of the QAs the attendees have. That for those of you watching, if you have any questions for the panelists specific to their implementation, feel free to start teeing that up. We'll fire through some of these questions. I'll bring Jesse on, but before I bring Jesse and Kelsey back on, with Cargo GA right now. So Cargo's GA now. With it being released, it's really only the beginning, right? So it's really only the beginning of the Cargo. We're open source project. It's on our platform. We're going to continuously be improving it. What are some of the things you're excited about for Cargo? Really, kind of take a look into the future. We have Jesse on, right? One of the engineers, one of the creators. Maybe this is a great time to kind of maybe go through a wish list or some of the things that you're excited to see in the future. I'm going to start off with Brad, right? So Brad, this is kind of like your chance platform. Kind of talk about what you're excited to see, maybe what you'd like to see in the future.
Yeah, so I mean, as I've been testing out Cargo on all these different versions, it's been really cool to see how much it's improved since the early beta stages. I think the main thing for us and for me is definitely the experience for allowing our developers to continue to take a new service and quickly take that service and add it to Cargo. So there's no backlog of having to take months to add things to Cargo, and especially when we continue to have more and more services and more complex services. So I think just improving that user experience of making it easier for the developers to go and do this and not necessarily having to do the platform. And I think since beta, it's gotten easier and easier and better and better. So the user experience, the user interface, I mean, those improvements and just continuing to kind of work on those things are definitely a really big thing. In terms of the technical aspects of it, I think I was reading, about integration with different infrastructures code things. So integration with Terraform. I'm curious to see how that's going to go and what that could allow us to do and improve in our Terraform aspect of things. Because that's just another mess that could definitely be improved as the way versioning and promotion process has been with Cargo. So I'm curious to see how that can improve things, as well as just deployment metrics and linking metrics and stuff, which I know they talk about DORA metrics and those different things. I think focusing more on that and seeing where that can take us with implementing that with Cargo. I think those are definitely the biggest things for us.
Yeah, awesome. And I'm right there with you with the other tools, right? I know Ed is I think using Flux now. but like it's completely flexible to use some of that. So like seeing those improvements is also something I like. I want to see, like, especially with Terraform. I came from Red Hat, so maybe Ansible for my own well-being. But maybe same question to Jose. What are some of the things that you're excited about, and then maybe some things that maybe you want to see in the future of Kargo?
Yeah, to us, metrics, anything that is measurable is relevant, but with the ability to sort of face opportunities to improve towards operational excellence. But if I have to choose one feature to arrive tomorrow, I will probably go for a native integration with developer portals. I am a strong believer in moving the developer experience to the right, and a productive developer portal as a single panel view is one factor one wants to consider for that mission.
Awesome, cool. And then yeah, so same question, Ed. I'll let you close that out. Of like kind of, what are you excited to see, and then what kind of like what do you hope to see in the future for Kargo?
Yeah, so I think the biggest single thing that I've actually seen on your roadmap is the upcoming expression language and generic YAML updater. Because we don't use Argo, the ability to update Helm chart versions is really not feasible with the way we have things set up, and I don't want to redo our repo. I don't want the tail to wag the dog. So I'm really looking forward to that, because right now we're manually promoting our Helm charts, and that's error prone to the nth degree. So that's the biggest update I'm excited to see. And then in terms of just like future down the road, we're looking at doing IAC through Kargo. So all of our stuff is manually done through Terraform. I'd really love to be able to kick that off in Kargo.
Yeah, sounds like in generic, everyone's kind of just like excited about doing things other than just Argo CD or Flux or kind of Kubernetes, just kind of outside of Kubernetes, some more of these infrastructure as code, right? Type of deployments and promotion. So I think I want to invite Jesse back on here, maybe to answer some questions, maybe take 10-ish minutes here to answer some questions. Panelists, feel free to chime in if you have any answers to these questions. I think the first one, this first question, I think I'm going to ask to Jesse, because he's probably the most equipped to answer this question. But so Matt is asking, what are the difference between Kargo and Argo CD's application sets and progressive syncs? So I kind of let you maybe kind of describe the differences here.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I would say the biggest thing is that progressive syncs isn't a experience I wouldn't want to give to my end users. If I'm a platform team and I'm giving, it's like, oh yeah, I need to give an app service team a way to promote through their things. Progressive syncs is really kind of just more automation for that purpose, but not a user experience for that. So I think what we're trying to do is a bit grander. We're trying to give experience around promotion, whereas progressive sync is falls into a category where like they call like spot solutions, where it solves like this one specific problem, but not the holistic problem of actual promotion.
Yeah. So then we have another question here, and this is kind of I'm gonna attempt to ask this question, and this is from Luke Phillips, and see if I get this question, or at least the context of this right. So if I'm composing different versions of containers services together, is there some sort of dependency tracker? So analogous to like a Go mod file or Python's requirements example. So like my service gets deployed with your service type of thing. Is there any kind of like dependency tracking there with respect to containers and services together?
I see Luke's question about is this about balancing keeping microservices loosely coupled?
Loosely coupled versus tightly coupled, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I think this goes back to the I kind of glossed over it in the presentation, but um, so loosely coupled in my view is when you might have kind of independent pipelines. So they all happen to maybe deploy into the same environment. They might interact with each other, but maybe in your company, like they have strict API contracts so that it's okay. Like if microservice A deploys because they're honoring some API contract that microservice B might call, and so there's no problem if they kind of deploy at their own clip. On the other hand, there's type of software that two teams are developing different microservices, but they have to go out in lockstep. So that's a tightly coupled kind of deployment, and we Kargo can support that as well, because when that happens, you want to package both of those artifacts, those images, as a single unit of freight, and that's why we have this abstraction. Why we don't call it artifacts. We got some flack on like why are you calling it freight and not artifacts? It's because we think of freight as actually kind of a container around multiple artifacts. So in the tightly coupled case, you want to assemble two different artifacts as a unit and promote them in lockstep, and that's the tightly coupled example. So hopefully I answered the question.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Jesse. There's actually a question about
Kelsey had a comment. Yeah.
I just want to chime in there because I think it's a general answer to like a lot of these things. People said the same thing about Kubernetes. Is it for microservices or monoliths? Like literally doesn't matter. You're going to create dependencies at some point. If all your apps start using Log4j, they're all going to be related and they're all probably going to get promoted to address Log4j issues because every one of your Java apps has that library, whether those apps talk to each other or not. So I think a lot of the features that I was happy to see at this stage of Kargo was the flexibility piece, right? That part where I can give you custom steps. Everybody believes they have this golden architecture and best practices until things go wrong. Then you're going to need these escape hatches. And hopefully those escape hatches are first-class citizens in the platform so you can avoid a bunch of these workaround.sh scripts in your platform.
Cool. Awesome. All right. So this is an actual question, but I think I'm gonna like turn it into kind of a discussion point here. Roman asked about like multi-tenancy support. So yes, it has multi-tenancy support, but I'm curious, and I think I'm gonna ask Brad this here. Is the multi-tenancy kind of RBAC's support in Kargo is something you're utilizing now? Is it something and if not, is it something you're gonna utilize in the future? Is it something that was attractive to you when you were choosing Kargo?
I'm sorry, the multi-tenancy meaning what again?
Yeah, so multi-tenancy meaning like multiple users with the RBAC and multiple applications having private islands within Kargo sort of situations for different teams. Is that something you're utilizing or?
No, not at this moment. I don't think we have a need for it yet at this point. With our smaller amount of services and like they're just I don't think we're there yet, but at some point in the future that might be necessary. But yeah, we haven't even thought about using that yet. But I think at some point definitely could be very useful. So it's definitely a good feature to have. But yeah, not at this point.
Yeah,
So
and
actually, Kent just answered that, but just to touch on it. So yeah, actually, we spend a lot of time making sure Kargo was like a good multi-tenant service. And one of the things we did was leverage. So there's a concept of projects, and I would equate that to the similar like in OpenShift projects, where a project is really just a namespace under the covers. And because by using a namespace as a project, it buys us so much tenancy guarantees, like your secrets that you need maybe for your your promotion cannot won't be accessible by another project. So Kargo's tenancy reuses, I mentioned this before, Kubernetes RBAC. So a Kargo project is a Kubernetes namespace, and so if you make someone admin of that project, they can manage their own secrets, and they can self-service their own team, and then but not affect like another team's microservice because they're in a different project / namespace.
So I'm reading here. Going through the questions here. I think we have time for one more, and I think you discussed this before, Jesse, a little bit, but can you go a little deeper about maybe auto promotion and then gating stages at later on? So someone asked, or someone was talking about like, well, gating stages with like PRs, right? Like instead of like making a commit directly back, you can do a PR. But also, I think later on, Cargo is going to have the idea of like approving in the UI. So can you maybe just go a little deeper about one, auto promotion, and then two, also gating those changes?
Yeah. So I can talk about two features that are already available today, which is I mentioned that you can choose to make the full pipeline promote automatically. The other one is because stages can have their own spin on like what it means to promote. What we actually practice is for us a change to prod. Actually, Cargo will open a pull request of the Git commit that it wants to make to that environment, and then a human has to go and approve that and merge it before it goes makes a change. Whereas the lower environments, pre-production, it just goes ahead and makes a commit directly. So those capabilities are already available in Cargo today. So those I would definitely make use of those if you're starting to use Cargo. Down the road, we have talked about so pull request is great. Like it's a natural way to get approvals if that's part of your process. But if you still don't want to expose people to the GitOps repo, we are thinking about, okay, how can we make approvals like kind of directly in the Cargo interface itself, so that approvals maybe not a pull request, but it needs you can think about it as one more verification criteria. So before this freight gets verified in the stage and goes to prod, I need Christian to go right click that piece of freight and say, yeah, I signed off on this.
Awesome, cool. All right, so I think we're like 5 minutes until the end of time. I want to give a big special thanks to Ed, Brad, Jose. Thank you for joining. Thank you for sharing your experience. It means a lot to us to have customers and community members and users. We wouldn't be able to build Cargo without you. So first, big thank you to you guys. Thank you, Kelsey, for coming on and geeking out with us about Cargo. Thank you, Jesse. Again, it's these tools here are amazing and at a big quality of life here. So I do want to wrap up with one thing here. Let me share my screen real quick. So I do want to wrap up with reminding everyone that the Akuity platform will give you all these three tools together, right? So the ability to do deployment with Argo CD, right? So we're a GitOps company first, GitOps first, Argo CD first. Be able to use Argo CD to manage your GitOps deployment. Using Cargo for your environment promotions, for your continuous promotion tool set there, and then also monitor those deployments with KubeVision. KubeVision is something that we developed just by the aspect of using Cargo and Argo CD. We were able to bubble up a lot of metrics and information that you're going to need to know anyway. So sign up for the Akuity platform. The free trial is a 30-day trial. You go to akuity.cloud and sign up. You get access to Argo CD, you get access to Cargo and KubeVision all together for 30 days. So you can go out there, kick the tires, join the community, Akuity.community as well. If you have any questions, we're all there. I know Ed's there. He's always active as well in the community. So a lot of these people are out there. So with that, we're going to wrap up. Again, thank you very much for joining. Thank you again to the panelists. Thank you again to everyone who was in chat. Everyone go to Akuity.cloud and sign up for your 30-day free trial. Sorry. Thank you, everyone.